Everyone. My name is Laura Rezac, and I'm the Associate Rector at St. Stephen's Episcopal Church here in Charleston, South Carolina. And I'm so glad to be with you on this Feast of the Epiphany for Family Faith Formation. So today is January 6th. Now, if you've been following along in church as we've been building the creche, building this nativity scene, then you know that the wise men have been going from window to window in the church, slowly moving up towards the creche, up towards the altar. In our tradition, the wise men are not here yet on Christmas. They're late every year. It always takes a little bit longer for them to show up. They're not there right on the night that Jesus is born. They come a little bit later. Today, January 6th, is the traditional day when we remember the arrival of the wise men. And there are three. There's one other down here. I wish I could, my iPhone stand doesn't tilt anymore, so I can't show you, but they're sitting all right here in front of the creche. They finally made it to see the Holy Family. So it's an important day in the Christian calendar, and one that it's good for us to remember. This is also a bit of a challenging day in the life of our nation. January 6, 2022 is the first anniversary of the insurrection that happened on January 6th of last year. And that was a pretty scary day for an awful lot of people. I remember watching the images that were coming through on television. Reverend Courtney and I actually watched it together. And I felt all kinds of feelings. I was really freaked out and angry and confused and very worried and very afraid for the people that were in the Capitol and wondering, what was going to happen. So, anniversaries are important days that can dredge up a lot of stuff. So you might also be remembering how you felt or what you were seeing on that day a year ago. And I think for that reason, it's important for us to lean into our tradition, to lean into our story of Epiphany. The Feast of Epiphany and the season of Epiphany that it begins, just like the season of Christmas is not just one day, it's 12 days. We're starting the season of Epiphany with this feast day. And this season is one that's really dedicated to light. That's an image that shows up a lot when we think about Epiphany, is light. And it's really important for us to remember that when there is darkness that surrounds us, when something really frightening happens, whether that's in the world or our nation or in our own lives, it can feel like that's all we're seeing is that darkness. But we need to remember that the reality is that God's light is always with us. God's light will never leave us. There is a light in the darkness, and the darkness cannot overcome it. So for that reason, I really think we should lean into Epiphany this year. And the way I think we should do that, one great way to do that, is with a house blessing. Now, I actually talked about this last year. I think I showed y'all a chalk blessing I did at my house last year. I was filming that from the ground looking up. And this year I thought, well, I'm just gonna go up on a ladder and actually do the video on the ladder and show you the blessing. And then I thought better of it. I thought, well, maybe taking a selfie video on a ladder is not a very good idea. So instead I thought I would just come into the church so I could be with the creche and with our wise men here and just show you the blessing and talk to you about a couple ways that you might do this blessing in your home. So here's the blessing that I've written out on a piece of paper. And the blessing is a little different every year because, of course, every year it's another year, right? And that's part of the blessing. So we're in the year 2022, and you'll notice a 2022 is part of what you would write out if you would like to write this blessing. So I'll talk about the different components of it, and then I'll go ahead and tell you about some different ways that you could do this, okay? So the first part of the blessing, the way you begin, is by writing out the millennium and the century. So we're in the 2000th millennium after the birth of Christ, right? So we would write the 20, and then a little plus sign, and then we write 3 different letters. There's 2 interpretations of these letters. The first is that each of these letters, C, M, and B, are the initials of the names that are traditionally attributed to the three kings. So, Christian tradition says that the kings were named Caspar and Melchior and Balthazar. Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar. Okay? Now, those names actually aren't in Scripture. Those names were attributed a little bit later in Christian tradition. Scripture doesn't even say that there are three wise men or three kings. We three kings of Orient are. Nowhere in Scripture does it say the number of kings, of wise men, of magi, right? What Scripture does say, though, is that there were three gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh that were given to the baby Jesus. So from that, from the three gifts, we've extrapolated to three magi, three kings, three wise men that came. Okay, so then these are the traditional names, Caspar, Melchior, and Balthazar. There's another interpretation of this, and that is that these three letters could actually represent three words in Latin that are used for house blessings. So the three words are Christus, Mansionem, Benedicat, which stands for Christ bless this house. So whatever interpretation, whether that's these letters are for the names of the three kings or those are the letters representing Latin house blessing, I think both interpretations are beautiful, right? So we put those letters with a little plus sign between them. And at the end, we put the decade and the specific year. So 22 for 2022. So you would write out 20 plus C plus M plus B plus 22. And that would be your blessing for this year. Now, once you've got the actual blessing, well, I'll keep holding it up so that way you can see it. It's in case you're trying to write it down. So if you would like to do this at your house, a couple different ways you could do it. One way is if you've got some chalk handy, you could chalk it above your door. That's the traditional way to do it. And I think that comes from in the Hebrew scriptures in the book of Exodus, the folks put lamb's blood on the lintel, on the door frame, to let the angel know that that was a Hebrew home. So that's perhaps one reason why we write it above the door. It's also symbolic. It's the entrance and exit point of the home. So you could do that. If you've got chalk handy and you've got a ladder handy and you don't mind writing it above your door like that, I think that's great. Another way that you could do it is just write it on a piece of paper like I have. And then you could post it on your refrigerator, or you could post it above the door inside. And that might be kind of nice too, because then you could decorate this paper however you want. You could do it in different colors. You could bring some of your creativity to it and involve really the whole family, all ages. So I think that's an option as well. So on this Feast of the Epiphany, I hope that you're taking care of yourself, and I hope that you are leaning in to our tradition and allowing it to bless your lives. And I do hope that you decide to do a blessing of your home, whether that's in chalk or whether that's on paper. If you do one on paper or on the door, take a picture, send it to me. I'd love to see it. Be well, friends. Stay safe. Keep on wearing your mask, and I'll see you soon.